When my brother went to pick up his bride, he was blocked by the body of a woman who had hanged herself. My family hired a Taoist priest to perform a ritual, but I was too tired and stayed home to sleep. After dark, someone knocked on the gate 4 times. The sound was deep and heavy. I was woken up, annoyed, and went to the door to find Anna, the village idiot. Her face was deathly pale, her eyes sunken, and her arms hung limply at her sides. Her skin was completely bloodless, as if drained dry. She used to pester my brother all the time, which made the villagers mock my family, so I really couldn't stand her. I glared at her and asked coldly, "What do you want?" Anna didn't seem to notice my hostility. She still wore her usual goofy smile. "Jennifer, when your brother got married, did he wear that red scarf I knitted for him?" She spoke in halting, weak phrases, slurring some of her words. I frowned, took a moment to process what she meant, and became even more disgusted. Why would my brother wear the scarf you made at his wedding? In fact, that scarf had long been thrown into the pigsty by my brother and torn to shreds by the pigs, but I held back and didn't tell her. Disappointment briefly flashed across Anna's face. Her bones seemed brittle, creaking softly whenever she moved. When I looked down, I realized she was standing on tiptoe. In our village, there's a saying, "The dead have no heels." That's why resurrected corpses always walk on tiptoe. Had Anna already died? Instantly, my hair stood on end. Trying to stay calm, I shouted at her, "If you've got nothing else, just go, and don't come back. I've told you many times my brother doesn't like you." Anna suddenly lifted her head, staring at me with a terrifyingly pale face. Then she curled her lips into a strange, eerie smile. "No, Tony, he likes me. He likes me." As she spoke, she caressed her chest, then moved her hand down to gently stroke her belly. Maybe it was my imagination, but I thought her stomach looked swollen, something squirming inside. I panicked and shouted at her to leave at once. The sky grew darker and darker. My house stood on the outskirts of the village, and all living things seemed to have vanished. Luckily, my parents had pasted a talisman to ward off spirits at the gate before they left, but who knew how long it would hold? Anna suddenly stretched her neck forward, her pale, blank face looming right in front of me. "Jennifer, I'm leaving now. Could you give me a pair of Tony's shoes?" I want to walk the path wearing his shoes." Her blood-red eyes scared me so much that I staggered back, my legs trembling uncontrollably. As she spoke, she lifted her foot, trying to step into the house, but quickly pulled back as if burned. I was nearly scared out of my mind. I rushed to my brother's room and grabbed a pair of old flip-flops he was about to throw away. My hands were shaking as I handed them to her. My mind had gone blank. I just wanted to get rid of Anna as soon as possible. Fortunately, she didn't linger. She took the shoes and left. Not long after, my parents, brother, and the Taoist priest Aaron returned home, all looking deeply worried. I hurried to let them in and asked anxiously, "Did you figure out who the dead woman was?" Anna came by earlier. She looked really strange, like a corpse. Was it her who hanged herself? My parents shook their heads in silence, their faces grim. Aaron sipped his tea and sighed deeply. The dead woman's face was tightly wrapped in a white cloth, covering all her features. We couldn't remove it, no matter how we tried. But I could feel the corpse's intense resentment. It was aimed straight at your family. I started the ritual to release her spirit, but before I could finish setting up the altar, a sinister wind kicked up, sand swirling everywhere. We only rubbed our eyes for a moment, and the corpse vanished. Hearing this, I couldn't help but shiver. A chill crept down my back. I kept feeling like a pair of lifeless eyes were watching us from the darkness. Aaron paused and turned his gaze to me. By the way, who is this Anna you mentioned? Before I could answer, my brother punched the wall so hard his knuckles bled. My mom cried out and hurried to grab gauze and iodine. I ignored him and started telling Aaron about Anna. Anna used to be beautiful and lively, but when she was 8, a high fever damaged her brain, leaving her mentally impaired. The village kids often bullied her, beating her black and blue or tearing her clothes in public. One time, my brother happened to pass by, scared the bullies off, and protected Anna. From then on, she became obsessed with him, bringing him freshly boiled sweet potatoes or knitting him socks and scarves. She would foolishly come to our house every day, which completely disgusted my brother. After explaining all this, I described to Aaron everything Anna had done earlier tonight. Suddenly, my mom spat fiercely on the ground and cursed. My son's tall, handsome, kind, has a good job, and even went to college. That fool's got no shame. Thanks to that hanged ghost, the wedding got ruined. If I find out that corpse was Anna, I'll tear down her grave myself. Aaron abruptly stood up, walked over to my brother, stared intently into his eyes, and asked, "Are you sure you never did anything to Anna?" For some reason, my brother averted his gaze with a guilty look. Even my mom lowered her head slightly. After a moment, my brother looked up again and said firmly, "No, I've never done anything to hurt her." As soon as he finished speaking, a sudden chill swept through the tightly shut house. Goosebumps rose all over my body, and a deep, bottomless fear filled everyone's eyes. Aaron paced while muttering, "That doesn't make sense. Even if Anna killed herself, she shouldn't be holding this much resentment." But the corpse we saw today is clearly filled with rage, strong enough to destroy everyone. Just then, we heard a noise from the yard. My dad was the first to open the door and step out. Moments later, his terrified scream rang out, and we all rushed outside. Our black dog and old ox had both been savagely killed. Their necks were chewed clean through, leaving only thin layers of skin clinging to their heads and shoulders. Blood and brain matter were splattered everywhere. Fresh blood was still spurting from the wounds, filling the air with a nauseating stench. The scene was so gruesome that I ran to the wall and vomited. There, I noticed a huge cluster of dead maggots piled up by the wall, nearly scaring me to death. Aaron's face turned even paler as he urgently said, "First, we need to check Anna's house and confirm whether that corpse is really her. If it is, we must get her birth information so I can set up a new ritual and try to neutralize her resentment. Otherwise, we might not live to see tomorrow." My parents nodded, each grabbing a thick wooden stick. "If that old hag won't tell the truth, I'll smash up her house today." Anna's parents and grandfather were dead. She only had a 70-year-old grandmother with bad legs. Since they were outsiders in the village with no relatives, people often bullied them. Only my grandma had always looked out for them. Seeing how furious my parents were, I was afraid something might happen, so I quickly followed along. On the way, we stopped by my grandma's place and brought her along to Anna's house. When we arrived, my dad was already smashing Anna's pots and bowls. A bowl of black ink had shattered, splattering everywhere. He roared at Anna's grandmother, demanding she hand Anna over. The old woman trembled in fear, cowering in the corner and pleading, "Anna went to visit relatives in another village. That hanging woman wasn't her, I swear. Please, I beg you, don't scare an old woman like me." My mom suddenly shouted, as if remembering something. "The East Room! Isn't Anna staying in the East Room? Let's check that room!" My brother charged ahead and kicked open the broken wooden door. The room was pitch dark, reeking of blood and rot. My mom flipped the light switch at the door, filling the tiny space with a dim yellow glow. The room was barely 5 square meters. There was a wooden plank bed without a headboard, an old chipped table with peeling paint, and a ragged quilt with exposed cotton stuffing on the bed, stained with ancient, unremovable bloodstains. A few pairs of twisted underwear lay scattered on the bed, and among them, one pair appeared to be men's briefs. I looked up in shock, but no one else seemed to notice. Following my gaze, I saw 2 pale feet peeking out between the hanging bedsheet and the floor. A female corpse, covered with white cloth, was carried out. Anna's grandmother wailed and collapsed on the spot. 3 more men arrived: Jack, Carlos, and Kyle. They were my brother's friends, called over to help move the corpse. Aaron pasted a talisman onto the corpse's face, wiped rooster blood on the paper, and performed a ritual, but the white cloth remained firmly stuck to her face. No matter what, it wouldn't come off. Aaron sighed helplessly and asked, "Take a closer look. Can you confirm this is Anna?" Jack circled the body, squatted down, and carefully examined her feet. Then he pointed to a dark red birthmark on the sole and said, "I'm sure. It's that fool. I know her body like the back of my hand." He stood up, exchanged glances with the other men, and smirked. Their lecherous faces made my stomach turn even more. Though they were convinced it was Anna, something still felt off to me. The corpse's shoulders were broader, and the legs longer. I voiced my doubts to Aaron. Aaron paused for a moment and explained that it was normal for a corpse to swell after death. The priority now was to stabilize the body and prevent it from harming the living. Anna's grandmother slowly came to, crying until her tears ran dry. My grandma cried too, embracing Anna's grandmother and comforting her. After Aaron got Anna's birth details, he told the men to carry her body back to the crooked neck tree. It was dark and foggy. The village was eerily silent. Normally at this hour, the village dogs would be howling like crazy, but tonight they were all strangely quiet, adding to the creepy atmosphere. The crooked neck tree stood at the village entrance. The noose still hung alone from a branch, making the scene even more chilling. Aaron lit white candles in a circle around the body, then set up 4 bronze mirrors aimed at the head, feet, and sides of the corpse. He pulled 4 soul-banishing talismans, drawn with black dog's blood, and 4 soul-piercing nails from his cloth bag. Looking around at us, he asked, "Now there are 2 options. Using the talismans will trap her spirit temporarily, slowly dissipating her resentment and allowing her to reincarnate. Using the nails will shatter her soul completely, never allowing her rebirth, but it will eliminate the threat forever." "Let that bitch never reincarnate!" my brother shouted viciously. My parents and the other men echoed him, all believing it was safer to destroy Anna's soul completely. Anna's grandmother burst into tears again, nearly dropping to her knees as she begged, "Please don't destroy Anna's soul! She's suffered so much in this life, so much! Let her have a chance to reincarnate and live a better life next time, I beg you." My grandma snapped. "Have you all forgotten how Anna's father died? You heartless bastards." Hearing her words, my heart tightened. It was a dark secret in the village. 10 years ago, the same year Anna's brain was damaged by fever, her father was returning home from town after buying fever medicine. On his way back, he passed an abandoned house in the village. Inside the abandoned house, my brother and his 3 friends, Jack, Carlos, and Kyle, were fooling around, setting little fires for fun. But they accidentally set the house ablaze. Hearing their cries for help, Anna's father rushed into the burning house. He went in and out 4 times to pull them out, but in the end, he collapsed in the flames, never getting the chance to deliver the medicine to his precious daughter. Because of that, Anna missed her critical treatment window and was left mentally impaired. Back then, her father could never have imagined that the 4 boys he risked his life to save would one day sit together, plotting to destroy the soul of his only beloved daughter. The thought filled me with grief, and I couldn't help but speak up. Maybe this corpse really isn't Anna. Anna only came to my house to ask for my brother's shoes. She said she was leaving. She looked a little strange, but she didn't seem hostile. I believe that even if this body really is Anna, she wouldn't hurt us. She may be simple-minded, but like her father, she was always kind by nature. Before I could finish, my mother suddenly stepped forward and slapped me hard across the face. "You little brat, who told you to speak out? And you even gave that idiot your brother's shoes without permission. You've got bad intentions. If anything happens to your brother, I'll beat you to death to bury you with him." Covering my burning cheek, I stepped aside and dared not say another word. In the end, they still decided to destroy Anna's soul. Anna's grandmother was forcibly taken back home. My grandma trembled with rage and left, sighing heavily. The wind was picking up, causing the candle flames to flicker. Faintly, I seemed to hear a soft, mournful crying, so sorrowful, so bitter, it tugged at the heart. But in an instant, the wailing vanished like smoke drifting away. Looking at Aaron, I saw his brows furrowed, a flash of disappointment crossing his face before quickly disappearing. Then he bit his fingertip and wrote Anna's birth details on the 4 talismans with his blood. He chanted incantations, driving the soul piercing nails through the talismans and into the corpse's wrists and ankles. Once the ritual was complete, Aaron wiped the sweat from his forehead and suggested we all stay put for the night. He took out a long red cord, tying it around each of our wrists, connecting us into a circle around the corpse. Sitting on the ground, we were to guard the white candles and keep them from going out. By dawn, Anna's soul would be completely destroyed. The night fog thickened. My father sat on my left, my brother on my right. Both sat upright, their heads lowered, lost in thought. But soon, their figures blurred into shadows in the dense fog. The atmosphere was suffocating. In the distance, a rooster suddenly crowed. Hearing a rooster at midnight is a bad omen. A sense of dread washed over me. Out of the corner of my eye, I glimpsed a small, skinless figure in the copper mirror like a red-skinned infant. It darted into the mirror and vanished. My blood froze, and I shuddered violently, unable to look away. Seconds later, the baby poked its head back out of the mirror, grinning at me. It waved at me, signaling for me to enter the mirror. I was horrified, my throat blocked as if I couldn't scream. By then, everyone else had disappeared into the thick fog, as if I were the only one left in the world. My body moved uncontrollably toward the mirror. In panic, I yanked the red string on my wrist, hoping to alert the others, but to my horror, both strings had snapped. Helpless, I was dragged forward by an unknown force. The copper mirror was just large enough for a person to fit through. The infant led the way. I poked my head into the mirror, finding myself inside a dark, narrow tunnel with a faint light ahead. The air was hot, damp, and suffocating. As my hands touched the tunnel walls, I was shocked to realize they weren't made of stone, dirt, or concrete but of living flesh, contracting and squeezing as if trying to push me out, like a mother giving birth. Holding my breath, I finally squeezed out of the tunnel. Night suddenly turned into blinding daylight, and my eyes stung from the intense brightness. It took a while before I could see this strange place clearly. Countless red-skinned infants, identical to the one earlier, sat on the ground, staring at me, some sucking their fingers, others giggling while pointing at me. In the distance, rows of identical village houses stood side by side. Curious, I walked closer, and realized all the houses were copies of Anna's home. The courtyard doors were slightly ajar, and with a gentle push, they opened. My brother appeared behind me, holding Anna, and without even looking at me, he walked straight into Anna's room. "Anna, let's play a game, okay?" my brother suggested. Anna gazed at him with sparkling eyes like two little stars. "As long as Tony's happy, Anna will play." My brother chuckled and began undressing her. I couldn't bear to watch and hurried out of the room. But the scene shifted, and my brother was suddenly outside again. "Carlos, you have no idea how easy it is to fool this idiot. Haha. Don't say I'm not generous. Ask Kyle and Jack if they want to join. If they do, tell them to hurry her. Grandma hasn't come back yet." I clamped my hand over my mouth, utterly shocked. I never imagined I would one day see such filth, cruelty, and coldness on the face of my once perfect, polite, and gentle brother. In an instant, my brother and Anna vanished again. From the next identical house came the sounds of crying and begging. I rushed into the second Anna house and saw Jack and Kyle dragging Anna inside. Anna sobbed helplessly, crying out my brother's name, begging him to save her. But my brother hid behind a wall, watching with a cold sneer as he leaned back and lit a cigarette, taking a deep drag. 3 lecherous, grinning faces loomed over Anna's desperate, tear-streaked face. For fun, they burned her with a lighter. Not satisfied, they then drove needles beneath her fingernails. In the end, they took turns riding on Anna's frail back, forcing her to crawl on the ground like a dog, leading her around on all fours while she screamed my brother's name at the top of her lungs throughout the entire ordeal. But she would never know that the one who once saved her from a pack of bullies, whom she saw as a godlike protector, was actually the monster who pushed her into this abyss of suffering. I completely broke down, as if someone had struck my temple with a hammer. I screamed and cried for them to stop, my throat going hoarse, but they couldn't hear or see me at all. Unable to endure the torment any longer, I stumbled out of the house only to see my father sneaking around outside the courtyard of the third Anna house. He had discovered the terrible secret. Anna's father had once been close friends with my dad and even sacrificed his life to save my brother. My father had always been righteous, unable to stand by while the weak were abused. With him here, Anna would surely be saved. Full of hope, I followed behind him into the third Anna house. My brother was nowhere to be seen. Only the 3 vile men remained, along with Anna, who had fainted from the pain. When they saw my father, they panicked, quickly throwing on their clothes while stammering that they were just playing a game with Anna. My father scolded them harshly, his face dark with anger. They pretended to apologize, but slipped away when he wasn't paying attention. In an instant, only my father and the naked Anna remained. My father stood frozen, staring at her for a moment. Then, with a complicated expression, he hastily grabbed a bedsheet to cover her and turned to leave. In his panic, he nearly tripped at the door, but just as he was about to step out, he suddenly stopped. Confused, I watched as he walked back to Anna's unconscious body. He stared at Anna without restraint, his gaze growing more and more perverse. Then, shockingly, he began to unbuckle his belt. My mind went blank. My mouth opened wide, gasping for air, but I still felt like I was suffocating. I don't even remember how I escaped that house. When I came to, I was already standing at the entrance of the fourth Anna house. The gate stood wide open, and a red-skinned infant with a sinister grin tugged at my pant leg, trying to drag me inside. Anna lay on the bed, wailing in agony. Her legs were spread apart, her whole body trembling as the head of a baby slowly emerged from between her legs. The 3 vile men stood nearby, snickering as if watching some grotesque performance. Frustrated by how slow the birth was, the 3 of them jumped onto the bed and took turns stomping on Anna's swollen belly. Hurry up, you stupid whore. Even my sow gives birth faster than you. Idiot, you act all pitiful, but I know you're enjoying this. At last, after a long, gut-wrenching scream that didn't sound human, the baby finally slipped out from between Anna's legs. Carlos, who weighed nearly 400 pounds, grabbed the newborn by its tiny foot and examined it. Moments later, he flashed a malicious grin. Boys, you know how to make a red-skinned baby, right? Kyle fetched a sharp pair of scissors. They placed the baby on the chipped wooden table and gleefully began their work. Blood gushed from Anna's lower body like an open faucet. Her skin turned ghostly pale, her arms drooping weakly at her sides. Her eyes were glazed and sunken, her mouth opening and closing weakly. If you listened carefully, it sounded like she was whispering, "Tony, save our baby." A girl's scream suddenly rang out from the window. I turned and ran after her, seeing the back of a girl in a pink jacket hurrying away from the courtyard. The figure looked familiar. I chased after her, but no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't catch up or see her face. Then she suddenly bumped into my brother, who was rushing toward Anna's house. The two stopped. The girl trembled, crying, while my brother gently held her, comforting her. 3 uniformed police officers approached from behind them. They were in the village to arrest a thief. The square-faced officers stepped forward and asked the girl, "Miss, what's wrong? You can tell us. We're here to help." The girl glanced at the square-faced officer, then turned to my brother. My brother shot her, a pleading look, silently begging her not to say anything. After hesitating for a few seconds, the girl forced a twisted smile and said to the officer, "It's nothing. I just tripped and fell." Her voice was also familiar. I slowly stepped closer and finally saw her face. It was me, Jennifer Delaney. My head exploded, as if countless worms were gnawing at my brain, devouring my flesh. The pain was unbearable. I collapsed to the ground, clutching my head, and after a long struggle, I finally remembered. I had known about Anna's abuse all along, but under my brother's constant pleading, chose to remain a cold bystander. When the vile men left, Anna was still barely alive. They buried the red-skinned baby they had created in a mountain ditch and never looked for Anna again. Though I couldn't bring myself to expose my brother, my guilt eventually made me gravely ill. After I recovered, my brain somehow erased that painful memory. For the next month, no one in the village ever saw Anna again. But thinking back now, so many things don't add up. Even if my brother had told Anna never to tell her grandmother, could her grandma really have been completely unaware of what her beloved granddaughter had endured? Anna was clearly hemorrhaging that day, yet no one took her to a hospital. How did she survive? Did she even survive that day? And if she died while giving birth, then who was the woman hanging from the tree on my brother's wedding day? My mind was spinning. Everything about this was deeply disturbing. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I scrambled to my feet and turned to see Anna. She stepped out of a red mist, wearing my brother's old flip-flops. I felt no resentment from her, only endless confusion and sorrow. She slowly approached me and asked softly, "Jennifer, do you know where this place is? I've been walking and walking, but I just keep going in circles. I can't get out." Seeing me staring blankly at her without answering, she walked past me and continued forward. I instinctively followed her frail figure, my eyes gradually filling with tears. "Anna, this is your hellish prison, isn't it? My brother never truly cared for you. Even wearing his shoes, you could never escape this place. In life, he never saved you. In death, he still wouldn't set you free. And now, what choice should I make? Everything went black. When I woke up, I was still under the crooked neck tree at the village entrance. The corpse with the white cloth covering its face lay in the center of the circle, and the red cords on my wrists were still firmly tied, unbroken. Daylight had come. Everyone was still alive, as if my earlier experience was nothing but a dream. Aaron looked much more relaxed. "Everyone, the candles burned out without incident last night. It seems Anna's soul has been scattered. You can all go home now." Then he pulled a piece of white cloth and a pen from his pocket and said, "Please write down your birth dates and times. I'll burn them together with Anna's, symbolizing that the past is wiped clean and we owe each other nothing from now on." Aaron's gaze was sharp and meaningful. "Nothing owed," he said. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a mocking smile. Every one of us here was a murderer. I still strongly suspected that this corpse wasn't Anna. If it wasn't, then this so-called exorcism was meaningless. Sooner or later, her overwhelming resentment would devour us all. I glanced at my brother. His face was filled with excitement as he eagerly took the pen Aaron handed him and wrote down his birth details without hesitation. Then it was Carlos, Jack, and Kyle's turn. Finally, my parents. I stared coldly at their relieved but guilty faces, sneering inside. They thought the storm had passed, but perhaps another deadly one was already on its way. When Aaron handed me the paper and pen, I wrote down a fake set of birth details. Until the truth was fully revealed, I would never give away my real information. I didn't trust Aaron either. He felt more like an actor playing a Taoist priest. He was constantly testing and guiding us, as if giving us exam questions. Was he really a priest? I looked at my so-called family, bound to me by blood. My gaze dimmed. I'm sorry. But I won't keep making the same mistakes. I won't sacrifice myself for their choices. If repaying blood with blood is the only way to destroy Anna's prison, and the corpse's resentment to save myself, then let you all die for your crimes. In a way, I've always been just as selfish as them, willing to sacrifice anything to survive. In the end, only my mother and I remained. No one wanted to deal with the corpse. No one cared why the white cloth still clung tightly to her face and couldn't be removed. They insisted the corpse was Anna, and that her soul was no longer a threat. My mother was about to leave too. I stopped her and asked what would happen to the corpse. She snorted. "Not my problem. She killed herself. Her family should bury her." Then she turned and walked off. I called out again, "Mom, you knew what Dad and my brother did to Anna, didn't you?" My mother froze. Then her eyes turned cold and venomous. She spat through gritted teeth. "Don't mention that little slut again. That brainless bitch actually knew how to seduce men." So, my mother hated Anna deeply, never once seeing my father and brother as the real culprits. My heart sank completely. Looking into my mother's eyes, I asked, "Mom, do you think Anna's father would regret saving my brother from that fire if he knew all this?" My mother's gaze darted away before she spat on the ground and cursed. "Serves him right. No one forced him to save anyone. It was his own choice." "Oh," I replied softly, having nothing more to say. A cold wind suddenly picked up, giving me goosebumps. My mother crossed her arms, shivering as she cursed and walked off. I slowly crouched down and whispered to the corpse under the white cloth. "You're still here, aren't you? Your soul may be unharmed, but those nails have trapped you. Now, I'll remove them one by one. In return, will you spare my life?" The sun shone brightly today, driving away the gloom. Everyone was cheerful. My parents prepared a feast, inviting everyone from last night to celebrate. But no one noticed how strangely quiet the village was, as if everyone else had vanished. Amid the drinking and toasts, two decisions were made. First, they would increase my brother's bride price by 100, 0 yuan, and try to bring the bride home tomorrow. Second, they would marry me off to Carlos, the one who had abused Anna the most. If I married him, Carlos would cover the 100, 0 yuan gap in the bride price. My parents and brother knew exactly what kind of man Carlos was, but it didn't matter anymore. All my remaining guilt was gone. The next day, the wedding procession set out again. The bride was brought home, but the people who accompanied her looked terrifying, deathly pale faces, huge black eyes, bright red lips, expressionless and stiff in their movements. The bride was even stranger. She refused to remove her red veil, saying it was their village custom that the veil should stay on until after the wedding night to ensure eternal happiness. My parents and brother didn't question it. After nightfall, most guests left, except for the three vile men. They grinned, saying they wanted to play bridal chamber games. My brother shamelessly agreed, saying his brother's happiness was most important. The bride finally spoke, her voice soft and seductive. "Brothers, can you make me some fried meatballs? Once I eat them, I'll play with you and make sure you're very happy, okay?" The four men, as if enchanted, laughed and agreed, heading toward the kitchen. But there were only leftovers inside, not enough meat. My brother ran to my parents' room and asked my mother where the meat was. Annoyed, my mother scolded, "No meat! Take a whip instead." Acting all delicate right after getting married, what a slutty fox spirit. The four men looked at each other, dumbfounded. The bride gracefully walked out of the room. She whispered something in each man's ear except Carlos. Carlos stared at them, confused. But before he could react, the other three pounced on him. Grinning greedily, they said, "Why didn't we think of it earlier? We've got a fresh pig right here." Carlos was tightly bound with ropes, struggling in terror on the muddy ground. "You bastards! You're fucking insane, I'm not a pig!" No matter how much Carlos struggled, begged, or screamed, it couldn't change his fatehe was about to be thrown into the oil pot. My brother grabbed a cleaver, aimed at Carlos's thick thigh, and chopped down without blinking. Carlos let out a blood-curdling scream, his eyes rolling back from the pain. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere, forming pools of red and white. Jack and Kyle hurriedly grabbed bandages and medicine, scrambling to stop the bleeding. Their eyes burned with crazed excitement. "We can't let this pig die just yet. The fresher the meat, the better it tastes." Carlos was too weak to even curse. He trembled uncontrollably, urine soaking the floor, barely holding on to life. The kitchen was brightly lit. On the large chopping board, my brother diced the meat into fine mince, seasoned it, and shaped it into smooth meatballs. Kyle and Jack stoked the flames under the pot, and soon the oil bubbled and sizzled as the meatballs fried, releasing a mouth-watering aroma. Fresh meat really does smell better. The three of them drooled, staring at the sizzling pot. Suddenly, my brother seemed to think of something, turned around, grabbed the cleaver again, and hacked at Carlos's fatty arm. Chuckling, he said, "Since it's so good, let's make some more." Carlos let out a final inhuman shriek, coughed up blood, convulsed a few times, and finally died. My parents, woken by the noise, came to the kitchen. One look and they were terrified. My mother collapsed at the doorway, trembling and dumbfounded. My father stormed into the kitchen, dragged my brother out, and slapped him hard twice, finally snapping him out of it. My brother froze, unable to speak, looking completely soulless. But Kyle and Jack were still in the kitchen, staring obsessively at the fried meatballs, about to put them in their mouths. My father rushed back inside to pull them out, but suddenly a violent gust slammed the kitchen door shut. Through the window, we saw that Kyle and Jack had finally snapped out of it. They clawed desperately at the door, trying to escape, but the door was like it had been nailed shut. No matter how hard they tried, it wouldn't budge. The bride, still wearing her red veil, floated eerily to the kitchen door, giggling sinisterly. Another gust of wind blew her veil aside, revealing a face covered with white cloth. Everyone was frozen in terror, then screamed in horror. It was the veiled corpse! Didn't that old hag bury this bitch? My mother stammered. No. Didn't Master Aaron scatter Anna's soul? My father trembled, banging on the window. No one could answer. But soon, the corpse sneered. Do you all want to see what's under this veil? Everyone nodded in fear. The corpse raised her pale, withered hand and slowly pulled off the white cloth. I held my breath, staring unblinking. Within seconds, everyone fell into stunned silence. Underneath the cloth was Anna's father, Uncle Larry, who had been dead for 10 years. Uncle Larry sneered and said slowly, I was no longer allowed to meddle in the affairs of the living. But my beloved daughter was tortured to death while giving birth. And my elderly mother, blaming herself for failing to protect Anna, took poison and died the night Anna passed. If her soul hadn't come to warn me, I would have remained in the dark. Who would have thought my act of kindness led to my family's destruction? You heartless beasts, I used my past life's merit to give my daughter a chance to be reborn. At first, I wanted to spare your lives. But after testing you, I saw you never felt any guilt and even chose to destroy her soul forever. You cannot be allowed to live. Uncle Larry's spirit grew increasingly furious, nearly roaring by the end. A cold wind erupted as he waved his hand. Flames burst through the kitchen, identical to the fire from 10 years ago. My father, Kyle, and Jack were paralyzed with fear, pounding on the door in vain. The flames climbed their pant legs, devouring them bit by bit as their wails turned into charred silence. My mother panicked, screaming at my brother, Go find Aaron! Have him save us! Uncle Larry floated above, laughing coldly. Look carefully, who am I? As he spoke, Uncle Larry's face twisted and morphed. Within seconds, it transformed back into Aaron the Taoist. I've already handed your birth dates to the underworld judge. None of you will ever reincarnate. My mother and brother collapsed, drained of all strength. After the three were burned into charcoal, the flames extinguished themselves. The kitchen door creaked open. My mother ran inside, saw my father's remains, and went completely insane. She giggled, tearing off her clothes, muttering how hot it was. Before I could stop her, she ran outside and disappeared in an instant. She had truly lost her mind, far madder than the Anna she once despised. My brother was too scared to speak, crawling to Uncle Larry's feet, kowtowing desperately. Uncle Larry returned to his true form, gazed down, and sighed deeply. Only the one who ties the knot can untie it. I hope you truly repent. Anna has locked herself in her heart's own hell. Go find her. With that, Uncle Larry handed me a key and said no more. I looked up in shock as his flesh peeled away, leaving only a pile of bones. As we stood in stunned silence, 4 knocks echoed from the gadathump, thump, thump, thump. Later, I learned 3 knocks were for the living, 4 for the dead. My heart pounded as I exchanged glances with my brother and slowly opened the door. It was Anna. She looked utterly exhausted, pale and frail, wearing my brother's worn-out slippers. The edges were torn and her toes were bleeding. She looked at me with confusion. Jennifer, I've been walking for so long, but I can't find the way out. Can you help me find the exit? I smiled at her and said, Of course. My brother suddenly leapt up as if he'd seen a savior rushing toward Anna. He grabbed her hand and said with fake tenderness, "Anna, I finally found you. Do you know how much I missed you?" Anna stared at him, her eyes gradually lighting up with joy. "Tony, is it really you? I've waited so long thinking you'd never come." "You know, I had a child for you." Anna lifted her shirt, tore open her belly with her bare hands, and pulled out a red-skinned baby. The infant didn't cry but smiled strangely at my brother. My brother trembled as he took the baby, forcing a twisted smile through his fear. "Anna, thank you. Our baby is so adorable." Suddenly, a blinding light appeared outside. The sky spun rapidly. Within seconds, the sun was high, and the clouds vanished. The three of us walked toward a wooden door, above which 2 red-painted characters read, "Exit." My brother grew excited, tossed the baby to the ground, and shouted, "We're saved!" The baby cried in protest, crawling back to Anna's arms. Anna, unable to read, asked curiously, "Tony, what does this door say?" My brother slyly replied, "Oh, it might be dangerous. Let Jennifer and me check first. If it's safe, we'll come back for you." "Just wait here, okay?" Anna nodded obediently, smiling with trust and hope. My brother pulled me aside and warned me not to say anything. If I did, he'd abandon me too. I stared into his eyes and asked, "Brother, why aren't you taking Anna with us? Haven't you repented?" My brother snapped, grabbing my arm hard, instantly bruising it. He hissed, "You know nothing. What if she lives and clings to me forever? I don't want to be stuck with that idiot for life. She'll believe anything I say. Let her wait here for eternity." My gaze lowered, my heart frozen cold. Seeing me stand still, he simply left me behind and walked toward the wooden door. It opened easily with a push. Before entering the darkness inside, he turned back one last time. He sneered, "Goodbye, you 2 idiots." The door slammed shut behind him. Instantly, the red-painted words above changed from exit to death door. It was clearly a trap. Soon after, I heard faint screams and voices inside. "A whole batch for the 18th level today. We're exhausted. Quit whining. They promised us a fine feast today. Excellent. Finally, some good fortune." After that, silence. The characters on the door changed back to exit, but now with a lock. I opened my hand, revealing the key. Turning to Anna, I smiled and said, "Anna, let's leave this place." Anna nodded. The red-skinned baby in her arms wriggled free, crawling toward the back, occasionally waving goodbye. The countless Anna houses collapsed one by one, swallowed by the mist. Amidst the quake, Anna and I stepped through the wooden door. We entered another dark, damp tunnel. The walls pulsed with living flesh. Only a faint light shone ahead. Carefully, we moved forward. Anna never mentioned my brother again. Perhaps she had finally let go. Minutes later, we emerged into the light. To our surprise, we were back in front of Anna's house. Villagers bustled about. Aunt Emily, picking cotton, brightened at the sight of Anna. "Anna, haven't seen you out in so long. We've missed you." Anna and I stood there in a daze. A few mischievous boys spotted her and threw stones, laughing. I was about to stop them when Anna suddenly snapped awake, grabbed a stick, and chased after them, cursing loudly. When our eyes met, I saw wisdom gleaming in hers. My heart filled with joy. At last, we were truly reborn.